This is Ed Driscoll for PJmedia.com, and we're talking today with Harry Stein, a contributing editor at City Journal magazine, and the author of the new book, No Matter What, They'll Call This Book Racist: How Our Fear of Talking Honestly About Race Hurts Us All. It's published by Encounter Books and available from Amazon.com. And Harry, thanks for stopping by today.
My pleasure, Ed.
Harry, back in 2008, the media's standard refrain was that electing Barack Obama president would put an end to centuries of American racism. And we did. So how'd that all work out?
Almost immediately after that administration came to power, we had the Attorney General of the United States, Eric Holder, say that we were cowards on the subject of race. We were afraid of talking about race, and ever since then, the administration has exacerbated racial tensions and a sense of disunity among people, almost as a conscious policy. Blaming criticism of Obama's policies on race, up to and including Fast and Furious, for goodness sakes, which was a bungled operation by his own department. He ascribed that to racism directed at himself and the president. Basically they've never hesitated to stir the racial pot, and we're kind of living with the consequences.
Somewhat off topic from your new book, but given that, as you said, we're living with the consequences of the election of 2008, I have to ask, your previous book was titled, I Can't Believe I'm Sitting Next to a Republican, based on an incident in 2008 when you were at a blue state dinner party and suggested to the guests that maybe, just maybe, Barack Obama's expensive and well-tailored clothes have no emperor inside of them. Given what's transpired since, have you heard from any liberals who said, well, maybe we overestimated this Obama fella just a tad?
Well, I think the people at that dinner party would attack me even more vigorously for this book, as a matter of fact. But I think there is some of that feeling. I was just listening to the John Lovett's tape, which was incredibly gratifying. There's clearly some of that feeling, but I think the hard-bitten liberals in places like the Upper West Side and the town where I live, which is a little artistic community called Hastings-on-Hudson, I don't think those feelings have been tempered at all. Look, these people read the New York Times every day, and that stokes their resentments as much as Eric Holder stokes racial resentment.
Harry, during one of the big Tea Party rallies in 2009, a man was photographed holding a sign that said, "It doesn't matter what this sign says, you'll call it racism anyway." Was that sign the inspiration for your new book's title, No Matter What, We'll Call This Book Racist?
Yeah, it was a straight steal, as a matter of fact. Titling this book was difficult. I spent a long time trying to come up with titles and bouncing them off people, and it's the oddest thing. You're very conscious of what the other side will do, and their capacity to twist the most innocuous thing into some kind of having some kind of racist dog whistle, as they now like to call it. So every title I came up with, I realized they could twist into an attack and identify me as a racist. So I figured finally, what the hell, and threw in the towel and said, let's do what that guy at the Tea Party rally did and say, no matter what, they're going to call this book racist.
Well, that sort of dovetails into a question I had wanted to ask you. The Romney campaign has to know that every attack on the presidency, every successful attack on the presidency, will be greeted with some variation on the phrase, "That's racist." How do you think the Romney camp will respond, and how would you advise them on how to respond?
It's remarkable you ask that, because just within the last hour I finished a piece addressing that very question. How I would advise them to respond would be vigorously and with great moral authority, saying it is absolutely disgusting the extent to which they pull out the race card in any situation, and the consciencelessness with which they identify good people as racists. That's what they should say, and I think that would be a winning strategy and have a very salutary effect, encouraging, by the way, the kind of public conversation on racial matters that we really need, as opposed to the one that Eric Holder endorses, which is basically an amen corner for the notion that white racism is responsible for most of the problems of Black America. What they will do, I'm not so confident. The Republican Party has a kind of dismal record. They've run away from racially charged issues. They're so scared of being accused of insensitivity on race that they've generally taken the wrong positions on these things, with certain notable exceptions, Ronald Reagan being the principal one. But particularly on affirmative action, I've actually covered and participated in some of the Ward Connerly campaigns in places like Michigan and Missouri. And the Republicans have been beyond missing in action. They've actually often lined up with the other side. This despite the fact that opposition to affirmative action cut across ideological lines. Obviously, most Republicans oppose racial preferences, but so do strong majorities of independents and even pluralities of Democrats, which is why these measures pass with 58 or 60% of the vote, even in blue states like California and Washington. Yet Republicans are scared of the issue. And that is something that is going to have to change if we ever are to meaningfully address racial problems in this country.
Harry, last year, Mark Stein's After America was released in the shadow of the London riots and the debt ceiling negotiations and Moody's downgrading America's bond rating, all of which illustrated the points he had made in this book perfectly. Your book has been announced for a while, and I'm sure you've been working on it for quite some time, and yet it dovetails absolutely perfectly with the Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman story, in which the MSM are going out of their way to gin up a racial tinderbox. And based on 3 recent reports in which attacks occurred where the muggers were shouting justice for Trayvon, apparently quite successfully. I realize that we could spend the entire interview on this topic, but what do you make of this story?
Well, I think what you say is absolutely so. The culpability of the mainstream media has been manifest for a long time, let's face it. These people have pushed this white racist narrative for many, many years in all kinds of situations, but never has it been so glaringly appalling and appallingly apparent as it was in this case. NBC's behavior is really nothing short of criminal in the doctoring of the tapes. ABC in the initial photograph, which seemed to suggest that George Zimmerman's story was a lie, when in fact subsequent photos tended to confirm it, was also pretty bad. If indeed this ends up with more death and destruction, if Zimmerman is acquitted, which is certainly possible, that results in kind of Rodney King riots, probably in many places. A major part of the blame will in fact, I would say almost all the blame will rest with the media. Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson do what they do. They're going to do it no matter what. But it is the mainstream media which has created and sustained people like this, these race mongers, who have played up the trope of black victimization to such a degree that people in those communities no longer react even to the most compelling evidence or to facts. They just react emotionally. As you can hear, I'm almost speechless and even trying to describe it.
Well, you mentioned Al Sharpton a few moments ago. I was in college when I saw the first episodes of the Morton Downey Jr. show run on New York's Channel 9 with an obese, tracksuited wearing Al Sharpton, followed shortly thereafter with Sharpton's role in ginning up the Tawana Brawley incident. How did Al Sharpton first run for president in a party that once gave us FDR, Harry Truman, and JFK, and then land a gig at a division of NBC, which had once been the home of sober, grown-up newsmen such as John Cameron Swayze, Chet Huntley, David Brinkley, and Tom Brokaw?
Wow, I love you mentioning John Cameron Swayze. I haven't heard in quite a while.
Wikipedia came through on that one.
He used to do those commercials for, was it Timex?
Timex, yeah.
Yes. They've never held Sharpton to account. as you say, he first burst on the national scene with the Tawana Brawley. He should have been not only marginalized, but probably put behind bars after his role in the Tawana Brawley hoax. And then there was the riots in Crown Heights, and then there was the Freddy's Fashion Mart tragedy in which 6 or 7 people were killed, largely as a result of his incitement. He's made a career of this thing. And the media, rather than damning him, has at the worst kind of chuckled at him as a character, and then decided that he was a character who had reformed, as Leslie Stahl famously put it in a 60 Minutes, a loving 60 Minutes profile of Sharpton. Why have they done it? They've done it obviously because he's good television, he's good copy, but they've done it also because in general they don't hold black race mongers to the same standards they would hold white people. It's that simple. I mean, you want to talk about liberal racism, there it is in a nutshell. In the same way they condescend in the whole affirmative action movement, with the underlying assumption that black people are incapable of making it on their own, and endlessly need a helping hand, and endlessly must be seen essentially as children. So they have treated Al Sharpton with a kind of kid glove treatment that they would never accord a white person.
Speaking of the media, in 2009, the Tea Party featured numerous black speakers. In 2010, they supported black conservatives such as Allen West. The following year, they rallied behind Herman Cain's first presidential bid. This year, they're supporting Utah's Mia Love, who's running to be the first black Republican congresswoman. And yet, the MSM is convinced that the Tea Party is a festering swamp of hood-wearing Klansmen. Why?
Why? Because it's what they want to believe. I mean, the facts are irrelevant. The Herman Cain phenomenon was particularly instructive, I think. Here you had a guy who was briefly, until he self-destructed, embraced by almost every conservative I knew. And never once did I hear any reference to his race. I mean, you did hear stories to his having come from a very underprivileged background and having embraced the American dream and representing capitalism in a way which they found very exciting and refreshing, and originality of thought, and all the rest of the things that went into that brief moment that Cain seemed like he might even be a viable possibility. You never once heard them refer to race, but for liberals and Democrats, like Janine Garofalo most pointedly, said white conservatives liked Herman Cain because he made them feel better about their own racism. They will twist anything. It has nothing to do with the truth. It has nothing to do with facts. It has to do with sustaining their own narrative of themselves as good and decent and, spiritually ennobled beings, as opposed to the evil filth on the other side.
And I have to ask, on the flip side, what did you think of John Derbyshire's recent self-immolation at Tacky's magazine?
Well, I had my initial reaction before I read the piece was it was another case of the right eating its own, and I was annoyed and sorry and a little bit angry. Then I read the piece. I thought it started out okay. The point he was making about the talk one would have with a white child, kind of mocking the famous black parents talking with black kids and being afraid of police and all that. I thought, although the language was a little harsh, I thought the point was very well taken. But as I read, I was more and more disturbed by the piece. I do think it's very important in discussing these issues to strike exactly the right tone. There was a kind of nastiness to some of the stuff at the end which did bother me a lot. Whether he should have been fired, I don't know. I had an interesting talk the other day with a friend of mine who's a libertarian who edits a magazine, not a political magazine, who kind of persuaded me that to the extent he was hurting the brand, or they felt he was hurting the brand, that was a wise commercial decision and legitimate. It still kind of rubs me the wrong way, but that point was very well taken.
Your book has a series of chapters titled Let's Pretend. What are some of the ways that the left and or the right are pretending when it comes to racial issues?
Well, I hope you have the book in front of you, because I can't read the chapter headings now. But there was one about let's pretend affirmative action is reasonable, not racist. I believe that's the explicit title. I think that's pretty clear. The one that stands to get me in the most trouble, and I've already had some splaining to do, as Lucy would say about it, is let's pretend that acting white is the problem, not the solution. And what I meant by that is that so much of black inner city culture, in particular, the habits and attitudes and values that permeate that culture, that afflict too many in that culture, are themselves the greatest impediment to black progress. It's attitudes toward work, as Newt Gingrich actually pointed out in his campaign. It's attitudes toward education. Those things which are always identified, and particularly the education part of it, as acting white, are really the ways to advance in American life. And I drew an analogy to my own grandparents, who came to this country not speaking English and never really fully assimilated, never learned the language. My grandmother was actually illiterate. But their children became Americans. Their children embraced the cultural norms of the white middle class, and more than that, they embraced American history and the ideals of the founders, and the sense that this was a nation in which anything was possible. All of those things have to happen for black kids to succeed and enter the mainstream, and essentially, drop this whole victimization and entitlement nonsense, and become fully functional in this society.
Harry, your new book begins with a dedication to black conservatives and then devotes its final chapter to them. Who are some of the black conservatives and libertarians you mention in the book?
Well, we've talked about Allen West a little bit. Of course, I talk about Clarence Thomas. I talk about Ward Connerly quite a bit. I talk about Tom Sowell, Walter Williams, Shelby Steele, Star Parker. I mean, there are a lot of people out there. I mean, when we talk about the hopeful aspect of this whole situation, I think, although perhaps conservatism isn't becoming widely respectable yet in the black community, a lot of black people have had their eyes open. There are a lot of very smart, articulate, and forceful black conservatives out there. And as you say, a lot of them are beginning to seek political office. There are others as well. There's a guy down in Texas whose name escapes me at the moment. I think ultimately, if the black situation in America is going to improve, if we're going to finally get rid of the Sharptons and the Jacksons and have genuine black leadership in this country, it's going to come from black conservatives who really are the bravest of the brave, in my estimation, and who have a message which is so compelling and so needed that I think it will be widely embraced. You know, Colin Powell could have been elected president of this country in the 90s. I think if he had run, he would have won, and that would have saved us from Barack Obama. We would have a very different black experience in America right now had we had a different kind of black president then. He's not as conservative as I'd like him to be, but God knows he's a vast improvement over what we've got.
Harry, is there a website that people can go to for more information about the book or blog posts related to the new book?
We have a website called They'll Call It Racist.com, in which actually we have an exhaustive list of the greatest race mongers, and among other things. And the book is available through Amazon, and hopefully, if it's not hidden too far in the back in most bookstores.
This is Ed Driscoll for PJmedia.com, and we've been talking today with Harry Stein about his new book, No Matter What, They'll Call This Book Racist? How Our Fear of Talking Honestly About Race Hurts Us All. It's published by Encounter Books and available from Amazon.com and somewhere on the shelves of your local bookstore. Check out Harry's website at they'llcallitracist.com. And Harry, thanks again for stopping by today.
Thank you, Ed.